Hello, my name is Dr. David Clarke. I am a board-certified gastroenterologist and internist, and I am the president of the Psychophysiologic Disorders Association. Since 1982, I have been diagnosing and treating successfully over 7,000 patients who had no biomedical explanation, no disease or illness to explain their symptoms. Instead, what they were suffering from was neuroanatomic changes in their brain, changes in the brain circuits, that were causing real physical symptoms in their bodies. And we call this a psychophysiologic disorder, which is a term that's a blend of psychology and physiology. And PPD for short is what we call it because it's way too long to say over and over again. So today I'm here with my friend and colleague and board member of the PPDA, Lee Cantor, who's going to talk to us about his personal experience with this condition. And I'll turn it over to Lee to introduce himself.
All right. I don't want to go into all the gory details of how sick I was. I can just summarize it for the viewers with a series of numbers. I spent 7 years basically bedridden with migraines. In that time, I saw 10 neurologists or other MDs. I took 15 different medications. I was hospitalized 3 times, tried at least 6 or more alternative treatments, and saw 2 pain psychologists. To say the least, none of these interventions produced any results. Then one day, laying in bed, just sick as a dog, trying to pass time of day, I looked on Facebook and found some, information on mind-body approaches to migraines. Well, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, on Facebook, this has got to be some kind of joke. So I went to the websites looking at the information they had about how mind-body issues can cause migraines. And as I went through the different websites, one of them being the PPDA website, I looked, they presented basically causes that could be mind-body for migraines. Among them, one, having a stressful childhood. Well, I was raised in a family with a mom with emotional mental illness problems. My childhood, to say the least, was stressful. 2, people who are highly sensitive. That means they are emotionally sensitive. That's me. I consider myself, and other people consider me, emotionally sensitive. On some hand, it's a real benefit. I was a psychotherapist. I'm creative. I'm artistic. But on the other hand, stress affects me more than other individuals. 3rd, personality characteristics. Among them are being hard on yourself. That's me. I'm very hard on myself. Next, being like a type A personality. That's me. Written a number of books, ran a number of companies. I just went through all the different personality characteristics. I had just about all of them. Also, having other symptoms of illnesses that could be potentially mind-body, such as GI symptoms, irritable bowel, other stomach issues. And I kept, all right. And last, difficulty accepting and expressing negative feelings. That's me. I don't accept the negative feelings I have. I don't like talking about it. As I went through all those different characteristics, I'll never forget running to my wife and saying, I'm a perfect storm for this so-called psychophysiologic, mind-body, whatever you want to call it, syndrome. I mean, I don't believe it. So that really started me on my journey of recovery. What I wanted to do was learn as much as I could. I started really at the PPDA in depth website with all the resources on it. I read Dave's book. I read Howard Schubner's book. What really started to get to me also was as I went online, I found testimonial from other migraine sufferers who talked about how their symptoms were mind body related and how they were able to overcome migraines with this. So, what I next had to do was really accept what I have is a mind body syndrome. And again, learning really helped me, learning about the research. This is research validated. You know, I see mind body. I was raised with a Western medical education, you know, that if you have a migraine, there's something wrong with your brain. That, you know, you have I was told I have a hereditary, could be hereditary. It could be a vascular disorder. It could be something with my electrical system, whatever.
That's how I was trained too, Lee. Exactly.
Yeah, that there's something physically wrong, not that it could be stress related. That just didn't fit. To me, that was like woo woo, you know, like crystals or some other of the alternative methods I tried. But when I saw the research of how, like Dave was talking about, the brain can be affected by childhood stress, and it can result in me having a higher probability of getting migraines or people getting heart disease who have childhood stress. That really got me going.
Yeah, that's
So,
yeah, absolutely. It was shocking to me when I first encountered these ideas in the 8th year of my formal medical training, and I encountered a patient who we couldn't diagnose. We didn't know what was wrong with it. We put her through every conceivable diagnostic test and nothing showed up. And I only accidentally stumbled on the fact that she had suffered childhood stress and didn't know, have a clue what to do with that because it hadn't been part of my training. But thank goodness there was a psychiatrist there who knew about PPD principles, who cured the patient, much to my shock, and whom I prevailed upon to give me a framework for how to think about this so that when I encountered it in practice, I'd be able to respond in a reasonable way. And that was the start of my career in this. There wasn't anybody doing this when I got into private practice in Portland, Oregon. There was nobody here who was doing this. So I ended up having to treat patients myself. But these methods are so powerful that even as a bumbling beginner, I was getting good results, better results than the rest of the healthcare system was achieving at that time. And there were so many of them. It was 35% of my patients had this. So I couldn't help but gain experience. It was still a steep learning curve. It took me probably 4 or 5 years to reach a reasonably competent level. But again, even when I was still learning, I was getting very good outcomes with patients. So I'm so glad that you found this information and that our website exists and that others also are active in this field. What was the outcome? I mean, did it work for you?
oh, it's incredible. You know, all I can say is as of today, and I'll go into it, I am migraine free.
Wow.
I and I will explain what I mean by migraine free. What the other thing I didn't mention, I went and saw David Schechter, who's a fellow board member, and I mean he was very important, instrumental in me accepting I had a mind body syndrome. He explained it to me, but he's a doctor, and you know I couldn't listen to being raised the way I was anyone but a doctor, and he explained to me again just what I had read, but he was talking right to me, and I never forget leaving his office going, "Oh my gosh, I've really got this." So I've really got to learn what to do to heal myself. And he gave me the beginnings of a program, but basically what I learned that enabled me to heal was the following. One, I began to start thinking the term that was used, I read, thinking psychologically, not physically. So before I learned this, if I ever got any kind of symptom of a migraine coming on, I would just panic. I would just panic. I would catastrophize. And I was desperate. I became desperate. But then what I learned was rather than panic, is think about what is going on today that is stressing you out that could possibly be causing your symptoms. And I would find very quickly a direct relationship that the days I was bedridden, something was going on stressful, be it externally or internally, that was producing raising the stress level in my brain, which ended up with it manifesting the symptoms of my migraines.
Yeah, the
So,
beauty of this approach is that it works not just for migraines, but for pain almost anywhere in the body and for all kinds of non-pain symptoms like tinnitus, ringing in the ears, visual disturbances, pseudo seizures, irritable bowel, difficulty breathing, numbness and tingling in the extremities, just a whole range of different symptoms that can be addressed with this same kind of approach.
right. So I started thinking psychologically and not physically. Second, and this may sound ridiculous to some people, I kept saying when I started getting symptoms, I started saying to myself, you're safe, you're okay. Instead of panicking, I recognized that all that is going on is that my brain is reacting to stress. And what I recognized is by panicking, catastrophizing, I was starting what is really to refer to as like the pain fear cycle.
Yeah, it's a vicious
So
cycle, goes right on up in severity.
it is like I would get a little pain and I'd go, oh my God, I just got to catastrophize. Oh my God, how bad is it going to be? Am I going to be in bed? How long am I going to be in bed? Oh my God, what am I going to do? Rather than doing that. And then what happened there is what I learned is when the more anxious I got, the more I catastrophized, the more it stressed my brain. And that stress increased the pain level. And as the pain level went up, my fear went up. So it's a vicious cycle. And I started saying to myself, you're okay. Yeah, you've got a little headache. Yeah, you're a little nauseous. But you know what? You can go through your day. I also didn't just get pain, Dave. I was diagnosed with vestibular migraines. I got dizzy. And that was one of my major symptoms. And I'll never forget, whenever I didn't have a migraine, I go for a walk, try and walk. And one day I started getting dizzy and a little headachy. And I said, I just don't want to go for a walk. I'm afraid I'll get so sick I won't be able to come home. And my wife looked at me and said, have you ever gotten so dizzy you couldn't get home? And I just stopped and I thought, no. And so she said to me, just go for a walk and see what happens. And lo and behold, I go for a walk and I don't get dizzy. In fact, dizzier. In fact, the dizziness went away.
Yeah, it's remarkable how many of my patients benefit from relatively simple self-care measures, I call them, doing kind things for yourself, taking some time that has no purpose but your own joy, and how remarkably effective something as simple as that can be.
Right. And then one of the turning points in my recovery, Dave, is I love photography. And
Me too.
Yeah. And as I started to improve, I started working with a photography teacher.
Oh.
And one morning I had a lesson scheduled and I woke up and I had all the symptoms. There's a immortal, whatever they're called, the beginning symptoms of a big migraine. And I felt lousy. And I'll never forget, I just said to myself, you're not going to be driving that far. You're not dizzy at this point. Just go. Just go to the lesson and let's see what happens. And I got to that lesson, and the first hour, I was not fully there. And next thing I know, as the lesson goes on, I get more engrossed in the lesson, stop worrying about my migraine, potential symptoms. And by the end of that lesson, I was symptom free. And that was like a OMG moment for me. Wow, you're okay. I mean, it's time for you to start getting back to life.
Yeah, and it's so clear in a situation like that that if this was a blood vessel issue or an electrical issue or a biochemical issue, those causes of the pain, they wouldn't care if you were at a photography lesson or beating your head against the wall. The fact that something as simple as an enjoyable photography lesson could cause those symptoms to go away, it tells you that your mind is involved. It tells you that there is a psychological as well as a physiological component to this. And in fact, it also tells you that your brain is trying to be your friend here. It's giving you horribly debilitating symptoms, but it's trying to signal you that there's some stresses that need to be attended to. And once people figure out that that's the message that the brain is trying to convey, then you can work on that, as you absolutely did. And the results can be so dramatic.
Yeah, and in the reading I did, I learned the role the brain plays in pain. I always thought my migraine was all, caused by some physical issue in my brain. I never realized the brain is capable of producing pain when there's nothing physically going on. Like, the classic is phantom limb syndrome.
I teach that to my students all the time.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that really got my attention. People have a limb severed and
It's been amputated.
amputated, and they still get pain there, and that's coming from their brain.
No other place it can be coming from, because the amputated limb is no longer there.
Right, and I realized, wow, the brain's capable of doing it. And then I had another incident that was instrumental in my recovery. I had an awful migraine. I was dizzy, headachy, laying in bed, couldn't get out of bed, could barely get to the bathroom. And we were living in an apartment building. I was on the 8th floor. I'll never forget this. And the fire alarm goes off. And I go, well, it's just a false alarm. And next thing I know, we're smelling smoke. And there is a fire in the building. Well, lo and behold, my brain, which is trying to protect me from stress, it's giving me migraines because I'm not able to deal with a certain stress that's going on. That fire, that smoke starts coming. My brain goes into overdrive to protect me. Next thing I know, I am fully dressed, running down 8 flights of stairs, where 2 minutes before I couldn't get out of bed. I'm running down 8 flights of stairs. I get to the bottom, and again, my wife looks at me and like, what just happened? And I'm like,
Yeah, how did you do that?
I said that. That's what I said. I said, how did I do that? And I just went, wow, this stuff isn't woo-woo. This is for real.
Yeah, it is. It is shocking. It is shocking what the brain is capable of. I've got so many examples of extreme levels of illness, but one of my go-to stories is a 17-year-old girl that I was asked to see on her 70th day in the hospital for unexplained abdominal pain, and she was getting very high doses of morphine around the clock. I mean, it just shows the level of severity that this can reach. And that patient was, the causative stress was identified. We treated it. She weaned herself off of opioids in 30 days. It was a wonderful outcome for her, but incredible how powerful the brain is at creating symptoms. Another patient of mine had a completely paralyzed stomach. I mean, it was one of the few where a diagnostic test was abnormal. We have a way of testing the stomach for how rapidly it empties its contents. His wasn't emptying at all. And we couldn't find any reason for it until we uncovered the stress he was coping with and addressed that. And then he got better, and the stomach issues that he had went away. But unbelievable that the brain could actually paralyze a person's stomach.
Right.
Incredible story that you've had, Lee, and incredible recovery that you've made from this, from having been bedridden for years. Just, a truly remarkable testament to your spirit and energy and creativity to find a way to overcome this yourself.
Well,
Um,
it's thank you to, organizations like PPDA that I am here today, you know, but I want to be clear. A few other things I did. I began meditating, but what's interesting is I had meditated before. And when I believed that my migraines were physically caused, my meditation never helped me because I was under such stress. Because when a doctor or 10 doctors tell you you have an incurable, chronic, debilitating disease, that took my stress level up
yeah,
here
makes
all
it
the time.
worse.
I was
Yeah,
terrified.
makes it
When I
worse.
realized I don't, I could then really meditate and calm my brain down. I also began doing expressive writing, where I would write every day my feelings, and that helped calm me. And then I went to a psychotherapist for therapy to deal with the childhood stress I had gone through.
Yeah, and not
And
not everybody needs that, but those who do, it's an essential part of the process.
right, not everyone, no, not at all. I felt I did, and it has helped. Now, a couple of things I want to say that I learned that I'd like everybody to understand. This is not a quick fix. This is not, we're conditioned, in through Western medicine to think you take a pill, do a procedure, and your problem goes away. No, this is not a quick fix. To be blunt about it, to this day, I still get migraine symptoms. I still get dizziness at times. I simply ignore it. I just go on, but I still get them. They do not in any way, shape, or form debilitate me. Zero. Zip. I do everything. I mean, I'm out playing pickleball 4 or 5 times a week, you know, and I'm I'm fine.
And I'll bet when you do get those symptoms, you do what you've done in the past, which is think about, okay, where's the stress coming from?
Exactly. What's going on?
Use it,
Right.
use it as a signal, use it as a source of information.
Absolutely. And don't compare yourself to anyone else. You know, I recovered from my migraines probably quicker than a lot of people I know. But I also recovered slower than other people I know. So you don't compare yourself. That just raises your stress level. And your recovery is not a straight line up. When I was working on this, I was up and down, but the curve kept going higher and higher. But I had setbacks till I had really mastered this. I had days I was still in bed, but I recognized that I was getting better.
Yeah,
And the next thing
many of my patients, when they first confront the serious underlying issues, especially those from the past, it can be a little overwhelming at first. Symptoms can temporarily get worse, but
yeah,
it's because your brain is finally ready to address those issues.
yeah. And so, what I think the important thing I'd like to leave viewers with is it's hard to accept that you have a psychophysiologic disorder. You're told that if it's in your head, it's psychosomatic, and you're just a nutcase or neurotic. It's hard to believe, but it's real. It's real. You know, it's hard to believe that this could be what's happened, but just take take my experience as one other example of the fact that you really may have a psychophysiologic disorder. If you have the characteristics that you can find on the PPDA website of people who have a possibility of having PPD, look into this. If you can, find a doctor like Dave or others who are listed on the website who have the professional training to understand this.
Yeah, we
And
have a self-diagnostic quiz on the website now that people
right,
can use.
Yep. And take that test.
And I want to say as well about, you made the comment about people being thought to be nutcases or psychosomatic. And, the opposite actually is the truth in my experience. That my patients, I think of like Olympic champion weightlifters who are being asked to carry 50 pounds more than the world record for their weight class. They are very strong people. They're just being asked to carry more stress than even they recognize. And if you ask an Olympic class weightlifter to try to lift 50 pounds more than the world record, they're going to break down. They're not going to be able to do it. They're going to feel like failures. They're going to feel weak. They're going to feel physical symptoms from trying to carry that much weight or lift that much weight. So in many ways, it's analogous to a PPD situation. But once people learn to put that burden of stress down, then they can see how strong they have been all along.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this, Lee. I think you're going to be helping every single viewer who watches this. It's an
I help
incredible
one
story.
viewer. Dave, excuse me, Dave. If I
Yeah.
help one, I'm happy, but just check it out.
All right. Thank you so much.